Welcome to another episode of Fantasy Reality. In a lot of fantasy series, and science fiction for that matter, you're going to have at least two races that coexist in the universe alongside of humans. One race that tends to be common are those based off of reptilians, such as lizards, snakes, crocodilians, crocodiles, alligators, that sort of thing. The other race that tends to coexist are catfolk, who look like they're based off of real-world cats, lions, tigers, and leopards, and cheetahs, and similodons, big saber-toothed tigers. But, and of course you got other races, such as orcs, vampires, those show up, and what you might want to notice is a lot of these guys, they eat meat, although with vampires they tend to drink blood. And depending on the depiction, like if they're evil, guess who tends to make the main course? You got humans. Of course. But what would they really eat? Because there's a lot of practical reasons not to make humans stay on the diet, the least of which is if there was indeed a group of these beings that consumed human or drank human blood and for their diets. Well, I can tell you this much. That community of man-eating creatures probably wouldn't last too long. Reason is, in real life, we find out that there's a pack of predators nearby. We might tolerate them, as long as they stick to their natural diets. But the moment that they cross over into eating humans, it's grab your pitchforks and torches, grab your knives, grab your swords, grab your guns, and we go out and we hunt them down and wipe them out. And of course, likewise, if there's a band of criminals that are operating nearby that are just causing problems, again, grab your pitchforks, your torches, your swords, your guns. You hunt them down. Or, if you yourselves can't do it, you post posters that say, "Wanted, dead or alive. Reward, lot of money." And basically you got, bounty hunters, animal hunters, monster slayers, whatever. They would show up and they would go after that group and wipe them out. So, of course, if this group was, say, part of the evil overlord and was, just traditional evil, just stupid evil, basically. Okay, yeah, maybe they would go after people because they're that evil. But for the most part, they probably wouldn't go after people. At least not normally. Because the moment that, because assuming that this race is at least as intelligent as a human, some are even more intelligent, like vampires who live for forever, they would at least figure out, okay, human, not on the menu, can't eat that. Because they'd quickly figure out that seeing humans as a primary source of meat is a bad idea, because they don't get killed real quick. Because those humans, like I said, we will tolerate a group of predators living nearby, but the moment they start preying on us, different story altogether. We become the predators. And they start to, and they have to figure out, okay, we gotta hide. These guys are after us. I do not want to hide nailed on a wall. So, and besides, and yet, of course, if these guys are smart, they would also realize that they would, like I said, they would see the humans and other sapient beings as a poor source of food, and at any rate. So what would they really go after? Well, they go after the same sorts of things that we go after. They would go after deer, because depending on if your setting is similar to Europe, there's deer. You can easily find deer reasonably well. You could probably find wild pig or escaped pig. That's reasonable to find. Antelope. Well, if it's set in the like an African type of setting, quite easily you can find a lot of creatures down there. Bison and buffalo, those are possibles, depending on, again, on your setting. Fish. That's a big source of meat right there, because it doesn't take too much to either build a trap or get a nice long stick, sharp in the end, figure out the correct way to... We got fish. Or other sorts of animal, like rabbits, duck, even ducks, birds and rodents. And those are quite easily to find. And let's also say that they are engaged in farming, or trade with those who are engaged in farming. Then they would have access to cattle, access to pigs, access to goats, access to sheep. And then there's, of course, the other animals that they could raise, like chicken, ducks, and rabbits. You don't have, when you have if you have a carnivorous race, humans, they don't even need to be on the menu. But like I said, they eat the same sorts of animals that a human might eat. I thought how to justify that in a science fiction world with all the biochemistry thing. That one's a little bit more complicated, but there's usually some sort of, it's either hand-waved or justified somewhere in there. On the other hand, if it's a fantasy world where it can be assumed that the creatures grew up on this same world, it's more plausible. Like I said, they would eat the same sort, they would hunt the same sorts of animals we would hunt, they would farm the same sorts of animals we'd farm, or, again, they would basically that could, I mean, basically, humans on the menu? No. Humans would not be on the menu for the most part. That being said, I could see some circumstances where humans or other sapient beings could possibly end up on the menu. And there is some historical precedent that could justify that. And, well, let's start off with like one plausible scenario would be if they are indeed of that evil race. Ugh. I mean, let's face it, you want a good villain, having that villain eat human flesh, that tends to cement them as evil, vile, and all that other stuff. But of course, there might, on the other, and of course that's usually applies to of the stupid evil variety. Now, if they're of the smart evil variety, they might just imply that, oh yes, we can eat you guys. And you can just imagine the terrified reactions. Some guy disappears in the night and says, what happened to Jimmy? What happened to Jimmy? What happened to Jimmy? What happened to Jimmy? And meanwhile, Jimmy's just been moved to a different camp. You know, he's fine, but nobody knows what happened. But nobody else knows what happened to Jimmy. What happened to Jimmy? What happened to Timmy? What happened to Timmy? You know, they would probably they might use that to terrify. And in fact, that sort of strategy has been used in real life, because there have been some groups of people who would file their teeth to make it seem like they were man-eaters. Certain tribes in Africa, they would do this tactic in order to terrify their enemies. But as for actually eating them, well, there are indeed people whose history has indeed had that. Such as certain tribes over in New Zealand. I think the Maori, I think, off of New Zealand, it is well documented that they did indeed engage in ritualistic cannibalism and the like, and in some cases it was considered a fine way to honor your enemy, because it would be a way to incorporate their strength into yours, from what they believed. Or alternatively, they believed it as a fine insult. And in the combat, I could see these creatures doing that sort of thing, where maybe they would, or at least purport the idea that they do. But what if they were neutral in the conflict? Or for heaven's sakes, let's say these guys were on the good guys' side, you know. Well, that all depends. Although, like I said, I could see a few scenarios again. One possible situation is the age-old starvation situation, where you're in that situation where there's no sources of food available, and let's suppose somebody dies. Well, that is, even in our laws, in our world, there are indeed some laws that don't make, at least in the United States, there's, in some laws, it's not, in some cases, it's not illegal to, eat human meat. It's illegal to murder them, to eat them, yes, yes. But if they're already dead and it's like a survival situation, you'd be okay. You'd be understand. You'd be justified in that you ate the dead guy because you had no alternatives for food. And now, and there's a couple other situations. I could see some things that occur, like maybe they would at least try to save the guy's personal effects, so that way, in the hopes that when rescue came, they'd at least say, "Here's Jimmy's belongings. He didn't make it, but thanks to him, the rest of us survived." That sort of thing does happen, and tragic as it is, but that has happened throughout history. And another possibility is that to be eaten is actually a form of capital punishment, like someone just brutally murdered a bunch of children. Well, he might as well not even be a person in that case. And it would be quite fitting to strip them of being a, quote, person by taking this condemned man or woman to this nearby group of carnivorous people who you have some sort of agreement going on, and basically say this person's a murderer, killed. In fact, we decide that they're not even people, and just hand them over. And they might just, to say that wouldn't happen, let's take a look at Roman history right there. In the Colosseum, there were indeed criminals who were thrown to the lions, as it were. In some cases, quite literally, thrown to these hungry beasts. And oh boy, I could even imagine it being ritualized almost, where it's like, okay, this guy's on the menu, you can eat him. Any of your troop, any of your clan, any of your tribe of good standing may come to the meal, can come and enjoy the meal in exchange for X amount of gold or jewels or stuff. And you have these carnivores. It's like, ooh, you get a great time, an opportunity to have human. I could see them, it's like, ponying up money for, I would like their eyes, I would like their tongue, I would like, whatever they consider the best part. The more that they put up, the better their odds. And I could possibly say that this money is actually given to the victims that the family members of the people that the condemned person murdered. That is a way to help to ease the suffering of the victims. And I can wager that over at table 2, the family members of the victims are watching as this meal's going on. And if you don't think that wouldn't happen, look at history. When there was a hanging going on, you'd have a crowd of people coming up to watch. And even today, when they are indeed performing an execution, there tends to be a room, with a window where you have the family members of the victims sitting in these chairs and watch as the condemned person is indeed executed. So, to say that they wouldn't watch as this guy's being ripped apart by these carnivorous people whom they have good dealings with, wouldn't happen? It would. And of course, another possibility is if it's like a funeral sort of thing. And that might be some sorts of situations, might be a little bit similar to an execution, but not, but perhaps not quite as violent. You know, perhaps, well, for one thing, the person would probably be dead. You know, died of natural causes, sickness, or whatever, and perhaps, you know, it's like these carnivores, these carnivorous people, you know, they get invited, and it's like, you know, they pay, they might pay, I could see them potentially, you know, paying some gold or gems, because in order to, you know, get a chance to have the choice part. But again, this would go to the families of the deceased. This would go to the families of the deceased to help them ease their suffering a bit. So that way, if say their husband had died, and they might have a little problems with being able to financially support themselves, having this golden jewels, that would help the family out. You know, I can see that. But like I said, those situations, like survival situation, execution, or a funeral, and even with the funeral, there are certain parallels with like organ donation. You know, there's, you know, when you die, you know, some people they take your eyes, some people they take your heart, your lungs, or whatever of your body that's still useful and might save somebody else's life. So, you know, don't say that it couldn't happen, because it could. Talk about a different way of formulating organ donation, but but like I said, those sorts of things do occur. I mean, that sort of thing could occur, and but for the most part, you know, barring those sorts of situations, where you got a survival situation, or an execution, or a funeral situation, for the most part, these carnivores wouldn't subsist on humans. It wouldn't be practical, because well, for one thing, the humans are quite well armed, and it'd just be suicide, basically, to eat human flesh normally. But, and for the most part, they would actually subsist on the same sorts of meats that humans throughout history have subsisted on. Deer, goat, sheep, cattle, fish, rodents, and birds, and other sorts of animals. Well, and I wouldn't be too surprised if, and like I said, I wouldn't be too surprised if, say, there was a tribe of these carnivores that, because assuming that they're at our level of intelligence, they would at least be able to negotiate with humans for livestock, you know, cattle, sheep, goats, that sort of stuff. And it wouldn't be too much of a surprise if these carnivores, in turn, would protect the trade routes. They would, you know, that they would, you know, protect, because it's due to this trade that, hey, we get access to these livestock animals that we can eat, and of course, if they are occasionally used as executioners, there's that. Or somebody died, and, you know, like I said, those sorts of things. So, overall, that's pretty much what a carnivorous race would eat. You know, I mean, humans would not be the primary meal at all. It would be more of a special occasion, and there would be some sort of good reason behind it. Of course, if you're evil, they're not really going to care too much unless there's a good enough reason for them to fuck someone else. But overall, they probably wouldn't. These carnivores probably wouldn't eat humans. And with vampires, again, humans probably not that often. They would, again, they'd probably focus more on cattle, goat, sheep, pig, other sorts of animals. And as for humans, or indeed other sapient beings, kind of all depends. I mean, in fact, there's actually some workarounds that could be done where they could indeed enjoy human blood. I mean, a lot of fictions where they just go for the throat. It wouldn't be too implausible that maybe they go for they maybe bite the shoulder, but don't necessarily rip it all to shreds. But they put enough of a bite that it does bleed, and that they they lick, have like maybe half a cup worth of blood that way, then bandage the victim, or meal to be, depending on how you do that, and possibly pay them. I actually have something along those sorts of lines in this one story I'm writing, which involves some vampires who have figured out a way to get blood without necessarily running into trouble with the local law. And you don't want to mess with the commander of the guard in that book, because he's not to be messed with. And what they would do and there's like a little, what they would do is people would quite literally stick a flag out their window, so that when a vampire is indeed feeling a little peckish, they would, they come in, pay a visit, and depending on the situation, they might do a little bit of a role play sort of thing, like if the person offering up their blood is a woman, well, they might do that whole seductive sort of thing going on. Or, I haven't done this yet, but it wouldn't be too much a surprise that if the person is a male, maybe doing a failed rescue sort of thing. But, but basically, it could be done. Set things up properly. And as for the carnivores, well, they probably, like I said, they have access of easy meats. And as for the humans, like I said, if they're on good terms with these guys, the trade roads would certainly be protected. Because these guys, and of course, now as for any outlaws that are foolish enough to try to raid the caravans, they might be the ones who end up on the menu. Because these guys obviously commit murder and stuff. They might not be protected. That being said, overall, humans wouldn't be on the menu at all. Same thing with other sapient beings, for the most part. Well, that's it for this episode of Fantasy Reality. See you in the next episode.